So today is Thursday, November 21st, 2024. It is 4:12 p.m. This is the Board of Directors meeting for the Windham School District, and I'm calling the meeting to order. First off is we're going to start off with the Superintendent Report, and then some changes to the agenda, the appointing the SU Board Representative that'll also go up under the with the Superintendent's Report. So, Bob, go right ahead.
All right. First of all, thank you for moving me up. I do have a kid getting inducted into the National Honor Society tonight, so it's a big night in our house. Yeah. So just a quick update. So we last night had the SU full board meeting. They heard the proposals that Heidi and I presented for the superintendent's budget, the MTSS budget, the fee-for-service budget, and the early childhood special ed budget. All four budgets were voted and approved by the SU board. And so I don't know if Heidi actually has that assessments loaded in this one yet or not. It'd be pretty quick work if she did. She did. So that was just last night. And so those assessments will be coming in. Again, you guys will not have on the superintendent's budget, we will be separating out the technology portion, as you will not be assessed for the technology portion on that. And I think the fee for service budget, I think maybe there was just the transportation might be the only part that goes to Windham in that one. So some small parts there, but you'll see some of those are up, some of those are down, but in the end, there's sort of there's a net increase, and a lot of that has to do with, and Heidi can talk more about this if you have more questions, but a lot of it has to do with, while our expenditure increases were, I will say modest. I mean, 6-7% isn't crazy, but the real challenge that we've seen is that there's been a decline in over $500,000, around $500,000 in revenue between all of the federal grants, the special ed block grant, and IDEAB. And so those decreases in revenue obviously have a significant impact on the overall price. The other thing that I have mentioned to the SU board, and I'm starting to tell other boards as well, is that one thing that I am doing this school year is I am contracting with an outside consultant to do an audit of our MTSS system. So in essence, that's going to look at all of our operating schools, well, actually all the way from my office all the way down, the structure and organization of how we deliver tier 1 instruction at the classroom level, but also the tier 2 and 3 instruction through our AST teachers that are assigned to buildings and our special educators that are assigned to buildings. And the purpose of that audit is to really look at, when Act 173 got passed a few years back, the idea of it was that there was going to be a blend. It was going to give you the ability to blend dollars and blend services a little bit, so that, for example, the example I've been using with people is that if you have an AST teacher who has a really strong math background and you have an IEP student who has a math disability, but the special educator doesn't necessarily have the math strength, you could have the AST teacher deliver that service. And so it allows us to kind of blend our intervention services in that regard. So, and the other thing that Act 173 did was reduce the money coming in. So while we've gotten the less money part, we haven't really explored in full the of how we're blending services to get maximum efficiency. So it is possible that we'll find some savings through that process. But the primary hope is that we're going to improve our delivery of tier 1, 2, and 3 education to all students in the SU. So that's sort of the work that I'm on this year. And there'll be a new cabinet report coming out because you guys are later in the month this time. The new cabinet report will be coming out in a couple of weeks. So the stuff from the early one's a little bit outdated, but I mean, most of it's financial and the doom and gloom of all the stuff happening at the state level. So yeah, so Heidi will be sharing more of that as you guys get into those conversations about your budget. That I think is all I have, unless people have questions.
See anybody any questions for Bob? I'm not seeing any hands in Zoom land. Nobody here, so I'm going to say you're off the hook on that, Bob.
I'll stick around until 5:30 if you need anything else.
Okay, and then the appointing the new SU board representative. That was gonna be a little bit further down, but I would want to just kind of, while you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe when you guys reorged last March, you had selected Rory and Dan to be the two SU members. So obviously with Roy being gone, Dan is still on the board. He could remain as your one. You could also choose to have a different person be the one if you so chose at any time. So the board would just have to make a motion to assign a new person if that was the case, or Dan could remain. But we just want to have clarity around because there were two names and now one of them is gone. So who are we including? Because up until this point, we've been including Dan on the correspondence.
So I believe Howie has interest in that role. And, I think that with his previous experience would be pretty handy to have in that role. So, now, however, Dan is not here for this meeting. But my understanding is that he was kind of looking to get, you did, so, so I think that I could motion for Howie to be the SU.
Point of order, Chair.
Excuse
Point
me?
of order. Point of order, Chair. It's Russ Cumming.
Yeah, what is your point of order, Russ?
Howard is not a member of the board yet. He hasn't completed his oath of office, so he cannot serve.
He has his oath of office.
He has not. As of 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Moving on that, please.
Russ, I just sent him over.
Thank you.
I beg your pardon.
Okay, so moving on. So with that motion, since he has been received his oath, and thank you for pointing that out, Russ, that would have been a big concern. But that has been taken care of. I also have my notification of appointment signed here to be given to Ellen. So those dots have been dotted. And as far as for the SU, I covered my board representation, there's a motion on the table to appoint Howard as the SU board representative. Any further discussion?
Second.
Second, okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we have Howard now for that. Is there gonna be any additional signature work or anything for him with that for you, Bob?
No, we'll just change. We just have email groups for the boards. And so we'll just take Dan and I guess Rory had already taken Rory out. We'll take Dan off and we will put Howie on. So when we send out stuff to the SU board, he should get those communications as well. And
Okay.
Howie, if you have any questions at all, please shoot me an email.
And as this is not the average time of a reorg, because he's been appointed and is filling in the role as clerk, we don't have to go through and redo chair, vice chair, and clerk again. Is that correct?
Yeah, you have Dan is still your vice chair, correct?
Yes.
Yep. I guess you do need to appoint him as clerk, so you would need to nominate him and vote him in as clerk, right?
Okay, so I nominate Howard to be clerk.
Second.
Seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So
And,
with
and a
those
sidebar note on that, Abby, does that mean Howie will be doing minutes?
yes.
Excellent. All right. And Howie,
And-
you're aware of the timelines on that, right?
Yeah, how do I get hold of the Zoom recording to turn into minutes?
So BCTV they send out an email once the recording is complete. That's usually a day or two after the meeting's done that'll come out. And one of the things that I want to put on for a future agenda item, and I don't know how you feel about this, Howie, but to at least until we are done with what is going to end up happening and transitioning with the building, to potentially consider looking at hiring a minute taker.
That'll be awesome.
Because I know that has been a really challenging piece, and the more that you're involved in the actual meeting, it's hard to take notes, and then, I don't know if it's really great for people just rely on a recording. Not that BCTV hasn't been great, they're amazing and it's been there, but that is something we have to do much better at and make sure that, this is meeting those timelines, because it's important to have that information out there.
So Abby, if you do want to hire someone to do minutes, you'll need to work with the central office to be on board and all that as well. There is a woman who does a lot of the other board meetings in the area. She does all of them except yours in Marlboro. I don't know if she'd be interested, but if you want me, I can pass on her contact info to you.
Yes,
And
please.
you could reach out and see if she's interested. Maybe you have someone local, but she typically sits in the meeting or often does it from the recording later. So either way, depending on her schedule, is how she typically has done it in the past.
Yeah, and really what I was getting at with that is having a 3-person board and the above and beyondness that the board members kind of have been operating at with everything. To have the third person end up also having to take the minutes can really take away from the meetings for them and where they could have a stronger voice. So during the time where things are going to be a lot more possibly challenging, that's something I think we can definitely consider. So we can give me that information and maybe we'll have an update by the next meeting, but just so that it is clear with everybody for this meeting,
Yeah, let's put
how
off
he's
the
taken.
agenda. Well, I'll do it off the recording.
Yep. So perfect. Okay. So now we are going to move along to public comment. So I'm going to again reiterate that this is going to be a 3-minute per comment. And you will be called upon. I will be calling on those for it by the school board chair. Maintain order and decorum. And it is 1 response per agenda item and preferred to use the camera when speaking if possible. The reason why that's on there is that really does help ECTV identify who's speaking when they get the recordings processed. So this is not a Q&A session, so you make a comment. It is public comment. And if it is relative to something else that is already listed on the agenda, then that's when that would come up. So just keep that in mind. All right, is there anybody here for public comment? Okay, is that you, Russ?
That's me. I would like to have the board read into the minutes the letters that she has received from Crystal Corvo and from Nancy Tips, as well as any other correspondence that has been sent to the board by members of the Windham community. Thank you.
Thanks, Russ. Okay, anybody else for public comment? All right. Now, with the changes to the agenda, I did bump up the reorg board piece just in case something happened and Bob had to go. But I didn't get a chance. Howie, did you see anything else on the agenda that you felt should be in a different order or brought up or not on there?
Looks good to me.
Okay. Alrighty. So the correspondence, we have 2 pieces of correspondence from. First off, I have to make a correction to the name that was on the agenda. So on the agenda, it said Crystal Corview and Nancy Tips McLean. It is Nancy Tips with 1 P, not 2 P's. And McLean is not her last name at all. And it's her daughter's married name. So that does not make sense and is very incorrect. So I apologize to Nancy for having that the error on there, and so everyone knows the proper spelling of her name. So Crystal's correspondence was the misconduct of this board is enough. There's no excuse for not timely warning a regular scheduled meeting. You and Dan should both step down immediately. And then Nancy Tips email. I'm very sorry to say I agree with Crystal. The repeated confusion about meetings gives the appearance of secrecy. That problem, along with the continued unexplained use of the school building at taxpayers' expense for the apparent benefit of a school board's member's family, is dispiriting to those of us who try to follow what's going on. The school board members appear to be incapable of managing the board's affairs so that the town members feel informed, respected, and included. Or perhaps the members are capable but just don't give a hoot. Or maybe they don't have time to spend on the office they hold. Whatever their reasons, it seems like it's time to let the voters choose a new school board. So those are the correspondence that's been received by the board. I can comment to myself on that. Daniel's not here. I'm determined and dedicated and I'm not going anywhere. The challenges that this board has faced has not been like any other in quite some time. I think it's fair to say that this has been a lot of hard work. You do bring up points. The minutes need to be on time. The scheduled meetings should be, scheduled for the exact same day. But one thing that is also different with this board is we have families. And this time of year, it is not uncommon for people to have sickness and illness and their other job, their employment for their household to be demanding to where it could conflict with school board matters. So with that being said, appreciate the input, folks, but voting time will happen at voting time, and if people are unhappy, then they can make that known at that time. So moving on to old business.
What about Daniel using this for private daycare?
So that was never the, and I'm not gonna speak to that because Daniel's not here. And there is stuff about future planning and the current usage that we'll talk about that more down there. So that will be answered at that part. But yeah, that's a little bit further down the agenda, okay? But that will get answered. So moving on to old business. We're gonna approve minutes of 8:15, 9:19, and 10:24. Did you get to read those minutes, Howie?
I did not.
Oh.
Sorry. Did you email? Were they emailed?
Yeah, they're, yes. So, and Dan isn't here. So they are on the website. So they have been posted for a while. They are up there, for people to look at. You will have to approve that at, the next meeting, because definitely need to. Get that squared away. Approve financials. So we had pay order, I think it was 6. Oops. Yep. And Stella, you have the amount for me?
I have it right here. $16,786.42.
Okay. I move to pay, and this is all the one pay order 6?
Yes.
To pay order 6 in the amount of $16,786.42. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion carries. All right. Building update. So, concerns that have been coming through from folks that I've been hearing is concerns about, liability to taxpayers. We have our waiver. We've discussed our waiver in length. We have our rental agreement. We have our contracts. The current usage right now was, we had private childcare, historical society, yoga, and my understanding, I've spoken with yoga, they have taken another employment opportunity. So at this time, do not have any plan of returning. And with the private child care, they as well are going to be moving on to other, what's the word I'm looking for? Employment opportunities. So what was unfortunate with that, and I will be looking into this further. I have some concerns that due to community members' behavior around folks that have been trying to work with this building have really gone above and beyond to try to make folks feel uncomfortable. And with that makes it very challenging for us to build relationships with people that may want to develop a daycare. And so at that point, we are going to be back at square one with the childcare option moving forward. Same thing with yoga. If it is something we would like to bring back, it would have to be likely with a different yoga instructor. The Historical Society had a event here this past weekend. I'm just trying to see if we have anybody on from the Historical Society here. Is Cathy, not Cathy, Jennie? Is that Crytanin, Jennie Crytanin? Okay.
Uh,
Well,
Hi, can you hear me?
yes, Jenny, we can.
Oh, you do
You're
hear me. Oh, okay. Am I supposed to
muted.
turn on the camera, the video too?
That would be great if you're comfortable doing so.
Oh, I guess so. Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Were you able to attend the square
Yeah, we
weekend?
had a great. Well, you know what? The slideshow was a great success. We had a lot of people, maybe 40 people there, and it was so interesting to see all the old photos that Harry Chapman had taken. Um, and then by the time we were done, there was not too much enthusiasm for the square dance. They did one, I think, or a couple of dances, I guess, is all they could. But, it was uh, a group of, I mean, the people who were at the slideshow were about my age. And so, you have to figure that maybe, but Sally would really like to do more square dances there. So, and get more younger people there. So anyway, that's it.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad it was a success and that folks had a good time. Um, Building ownership. That is another thing that continues to come up. So, the building is the.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Russ.
it's Russell Cumming again. I'd like to know, for building usage, how many people are paying and how much money has been received between July 1st, 2020.
So, Russ, you are interrupting what I'm talking and you're asking questions, and that's great, but I'm not taking questions right now. Okay? So please stop interrupting. So with the building ownership, so the district is in ownership of the building and its property, and one of what we are working on in coming up with language that Russ actually did share some information on, that was wording that was used at the let me see. Wording that was used at the West River School District for their building. And so it is similar to the article that we may be looking for
I'd like to ask you to speak more clearly, saying.
Oh my goodness, folks,
You are talking fast.
I can slow down, okay? So the building is going to, we are not including that in the budget, as we will see shortly when we get to Heidi's presentation portion for the preliminary budget. So the thought is, how are we going to be able to transfer the building in a way that's going to be best for the community, right? That's really what we're trying to look at. And I believe Cathy Edgerly is on here as well. And I would like Cathy to talk to us about some of the future planning and what we can be looking at from the school board. I know you got some really great information you shared at the select board meeting on Monday. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about what's going on?
Sure. So I think, I don't know if the school board remembers this, but the town of Windham had received a grant of $10,000 to do a capital plan for the town. So we would be looking at all the buildings that the town owns and doing kind of a straight up capital plan. But in between the time we were awarded the capital plan and now, it seemed like there might be a better use of planning. So this money is only planning money. So I went back to the VCRD and I said to them, could we use this money to do a feasibility study to evaluate possible uses for the Windham Elementary School for the town of Windham? Just as I think anybody on this meeting, if you were going to buy something, you would like to know what you were buying, how much it would cost to operate it, what you would use it for, and the long-term benefits or challenges that you might be faced with. So the VCRD considered it and they said, yes, you may do that. And I think they even might have given us a couple more $1,000. So we will be doing an RFP that will go out next week to conduct a feasibility study to evaluate the potential for purchase by the town of Windham of the elementary school. And the study will use the facility condition assessment prepared for the Vermont Agency of Education by Bureau Veritas on July 6, 2023, as the basis for the condition of the building and its maintenance. And so there'll be kind of probably a cursory review to make sure there's no red flags from the consultants that we hire from their point of view. And basically what they will try to do is identify potential uses for the building and to perhaps look at other facilities that are similar and to try to develop some type of projected capital cost, operational expenses, and potential revenue streams for what these options. Obviously, that would not be done at a granular level, but it would be done at an assessment level that might give the town of Windham a good tool with which to decide whether or not they can afford to acquire this building, even if it only cost them $1. If they were then hit with $200,000 the next year, maybe they aren't the right person to buy the building. Maybe they are, and that's another story. It's not the job of this feasibility study to make any decisions or even recommendations. It is to provide data about bricks and mortar and some ideas from, on the one hand, what would it cost to demolish the building? To the other hand, whatever your imagination can come up with, from a school to a bowling alley to housing to anything else. So that work, we have put in the RFP that it needs to be completed by the end of February. So this is an extremely intense look so that the town, for town meeting, will have a tool that will help them decide whether this is a good thing to do or not. And also we're putting together a task force group to be part of this feasibility study, just to, again, to suggest ideas and to be sort of a funnel of ideas so that we can develop some spreadsheets. But again, it is not decision-making, it is not choosing, it is not even recommending. It is giving the town the data, and obviously, I'm sure there's a lot more data the town might want, but to try to prioritize what you can get for, let's say, $12,000. And I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
Yes, and one of the questions that I have is there anything that you would need from us from the board? Because this was a motion that was made at the select board meeting to kind of reallocate those funds for this purpose. But do you need anything from us, Cathy? Do we need to do a motion of anything? Or you think we're good?
No, because this is money for the town, not the school district board. And also, my guess is there could be, the consultant could come back and say, on the report on page 7, it's not clear. Could we call Bureau Veritas and get some, analysis or something? I mean, I would imagine there could be some questions, but no, there's nothing at this point in time. And probably we would want to be able to say, could we have access to the building on this date to look at this item or something like that? So.
Okay.
Does that make sense? That makes sense.
Yep. Maureen, I see that your hand is up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I wasn't able to unmute. Abby, after the last school board meeting and on behalf of the Windham Meeting House Committee, I reached out to you to get a copy of the rental agreement that you guys were using so that we might mirror that or at least have an idea of what you said in yours. I haven't heard anything. Is that available to me, please?
Yes, it is.
Would you
So
send it to me when you have a sec?
yes, and I will make sure to send that to you.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Okay. All right, so moving on, that is awesome news, Cathy. I'm really excited about that. I think this is going to be a really great way to obtain more data and help our community make wise choices as to what's going to happen with this building and the path that it can take. So, just appreciate all of your work and dedication to our community because we appreciate you. New business. Moving on to preliminary budget.
And I'm not sure where the microphone is, but if it could be closer to Heidi, maybe that would be helpful.
It's right here.
No, it's this microphone, right?
No, right here. Does both.
Let me just, I know since you have somebody in the audience, let me give her a budget so she can see what I'm doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Absolutely. And I'm not sure whether you have one yet with you, but there you go.
Thank you.
Oh, I was just
Oh,
gonna do that one.
thank
Sorry.
you. No, you're good.
Okay, so on your screen, can you now see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, my screen sharing is paused.
All right.
Oh. Here we go. Let me try again, because I changed. Okay. Do you see a budget on your screen?
I do. Is any, let's see here.
Can anybody out there in TV land see my budget on the screen?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So to start off with, we'll talk a little bit about revenue, which is decreasing, as Bob mentioned, overall for Windham Central, so that as we get into the assessments, there are definitely impacts to the assessments based on federal grants, both consolidated title grants, consolidated federal grants. The census block grant has extremely huge decrease coming up for FY 26. So that impacts all the assessments for all of our schools. At the top of this particular Windham's budget, we're looking at would be H is the column that we're looking at for the proposed budget. The $7,800 is what West River has been paying for the transportation towards getting secondary students from Windham to Leland and Gray. So I know we can have a conversation about that as we move on, but I'll go through the budget first. Then there's some interest listed, 200 for the bank accounts that we have. The transportation subgrant is money that comes from the state, and we get that in towards the end of the year, springtime, and it gets sent out dispersed based on ADM to the schools that provide transportation for students. The spot in yellow is what I have determined at this point as we go through the expenditure budget is what this budget shows that will need to be raised by local taxes. So as we move down into expenditures, as I was asked at the last meeting, I have taken out building expenses. So what you can see here is tuition. We have tuition for public and private schools. Trying to get an accurate count. We have had, I believe it's 12, 13, 14 students that are going to public school right now and 5 that are going to private. So I calculated looking at those that are in 6th grade moving on, those that might potentially come in to a kindergarten level, and then built in a couple phantom students to try and guess, if you will, on what you will be expending for tuition next year. Tuition rates haven't been announced for 26, so I also put an increase of 4% on what the tuition rates were this year to try to build in that expense. I know that under private, there is also, I've incorporated 3 pre-K students. We haven't spent any out of the budget, but I have heard during the census collection of data that goes to the state in December that there are 3 pre-K kids all currently that we will potentially be getting invoices for. So I decided to keep it at the same 3 pre-K students. So that's the tuition piece that you're looking at and my reasoning behind that. Assessments, the special ed, that's both for the current MTSS assessment, which is special ed AST, as well as a $3,000 cost for ECSE. And that is for children under the age of 6 up through 5 years and 11 months. They are both within this 39,000 assessment based on your ADM, long-term ADM actual numbers, 2-year rolling average. So then going down a little further is the Board of Education expenses. So you've got your board stipends in there. There's some money for insurance because you currently have a building. There's money in there for communication, whether you spend it or not. I have reduced it a little bit because there hasn't been too much of a need now, but it could be, whatever your desire is. Then the SU assessment, the 31,000, that is a decrease. The superintendent's budget has decreased 4.7% for fiscal year 26, excuse me. What year are we in? For 26. That's based on a couple positions. Lori Garland, who transitioned me into this role, she is stepping away. And so that decrease, as well as another business office assistant position. There's some decrease in the tech piece of the SU you're not involved in. So it's just the superintendent's budget. So that's mainly why you see a decrease there. Okay, so going down, just turn off that phone that's ringing. So that doesn't. So then we have audits. That's other professional services. That is based on the current audits. For this year, we haven't received our final audits back yet or draft audits, but the cost is going up surprisingly enough. And so that's based on what they expect the audit to cost Windham in 26 for 25. Then there's legal services, professional services. That was kind of a guess. It's been all over the place for Windham. So again, I'm figuring if you're getting rid of a building, it could go down some more, but I felt like just to make sure we should put in the $5,000. Let's see. Then we have the part of the bus. So that's this next part, which is transportation. Professional services, repairs, that all has to do with bus repairs, insurance on the bus, and then Windham Central is currently contracting cord for Windham so that there's no salaries coming out of the Windham budget to make it simpler. And so that's just purchasing his salary back. Then there's the gasoline for the bus. And so it's pretty.
Gasoline or diesel?
Well, diesel is
Okay.
just listed under gasoline. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's
I can hear my husband going,
Yeah, my husband would do the same thing. And so you'll see that it brings it down to 496,554 at the bottom. And then there's the 54,768, which was the error that happened when the information was uploaded to the state level, which we talked about at the last meeting. So that's going to come right off the top of what needs to be collected. And so between that 496 and subtracting that and taking the other offsetting revenue is how I've come up with 422,286 that would have to be raised in taxes.
Okay. Dr. David Cherry has his hand raised. I'm not sure if you're able to take questions. We want to wait.
I can take some.
All right, go ahead, Dr. Cherry.
Okay, I got can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My question is in the line that you show insurance, is that insurance for liability on the building? It's just not clear to me if people are going to use the building, who's covering the insurance, what budget does it come out of, et cetera?
Yes, currently the building insurance is, so there's two insurance lines that I went through. The first one under the board is the 400 is for the building. The 1,000 under the transportation is for the bus transportation.
Okay,
So
and when you say building, does that cover somebody getting injured in the building, et cetera?
Well, we currently have insurance for that now. This is for fiscal year 26, and so that insurance has been removed for 26 because I was told to take out all the expenses of the building. So you're not seeing that upgrade of insurance in this particular budget.
Still confused. Are we insured or not is my question.
Okay, I'm sorry. You are currently insured. We do have insurance on this building, full insurance to cover if something happens.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. Thanks very much.
Year, which
Thank
is
you, Dr.
June
Chair.
30th.
Which is until June 30th?
Yes.
And just to, in case you didn't catch that, that until June 30th of 2025. So, what Lori was, or not Lori, I'm sorry,
That's
Heidi
okay. That's
was, just explaining is in the budget going forward, since we are not planning on the building, that expense will not be, fiscal year 26, because
Yes.
we're not looking at this building being here for this purpose in that year. Is that
So
clear, Dr.?
So nobody will be able to use the building or go into it, and because we don't have insurance after that date, is that correct?
So I'm moving forward as if the building has already changed hands with somebody. We would
Ah.
need to different budget. If the school board is going to continue to own this building, we would have to add some things into the budget that I have created for 26.
Okay, thank you.
Just real quick, I just wanted to point out, and I'm assuming you can see this different tab that I'm on. Just showing that the budget is down from over last year, from over this current year that we're in, 18.84%. So I just wanted to finish saying that that includes the taking out the overpayment that was made this year. Prior to that, the budget is down 9.11% based on taking those building expenses out. I just wanted to finish off by saying that. So
Thank you. We
Yeah.
got two more folks with hands up
Yep.
here. Michael Pelton and then Cathy Edgerly.
Thank you. I was wondering if you might be able to elaborate a little bit about the transportation piece. My question effectively is the Windham School District being reimbursed for the transport of middle school and high school students based on the fact that the transport is being conducted by our town with our bus, and the fact that for instance, I would assume, and I'm making some general assumptions, but the high school and middle school students from other towns, their transportation is being conducted by the district.
So on the first page of my budget, you can see what's budgeted that's paid from West River, $7,800. That was based on an analysis that was done with Lori and Cord, determining the mileage to transport the secondary students 7th through 12th to Leland and Gray. So it was based on using the federal mileage reimbursement and the actual amount of miles that Cord was driving. I haven't redone the analysis. It was only done, I think, last year, potentially the year before, and I can certainly do that. I do want to mention, though, that that was when there was 2 bus runs, and now it's just 1 bus run with the transport of your primary school kids that are going down to Townsend. I don't know if that would change anything or impact it, but it was done on the analysis of driving only secondary students down to Townsend at the time.
Could I follow up?
That's okay with you?
Yes.
So I guess I'm not suggesting that we cut transport of the elementary students. However, the one thing that I would like to point out is that currently the Windham School District does not operate a school, and they're not providing transportation to all of the places where students are going. So it would seem appropriate that if we're going to provide transportation, that we have an arrangement similar to West River, based on, I don't know if they do it by mileage or groups of students or how they do it, but it seems like for the amount of money we're spending on a bus and the insurance and so forth, that we're sort of getting the short end of the stick.
Well, if you look at what you get back from the state and you look at what Leland and Gray is paying, it's about $19,000, and you're paying definitely maintenance on the bus. Cord and his salary for next year is $17,000. So you're actually, yes, there's maintenance on the bus that isn't completely paid for, but between the salary and the money that you're getting in, there's quite a bit of it's paying quite a bit of it. West River has an actual, I think it's a 5-year contract with West River Transportation currently. So we enter in negotiations with them for every period. So I guess Windham could try to enter negotiations with West River separately about busing. Or it could be included in the next negotiations for a contract, but I think we're currently in the middle of a contract cycle, so I'm not sure how easy that would be to change. I would also like to mention Stratton has one contract for one school district that they allow a bus run with the Bennington Rutland Supervisory Union, so they don't provide transportation other than that one bus, and if families choose to go there, they can make use of the bus, and if not. So I feel like your situation is similar to Stratton at this point in time, but obviously the board can decide to do whatever they want to do with the transportation piece.
Thank you. The only other point to that would be that I think it's important for us to remember that apart from the maintenance and the employee and so forth, we also have to consider the fact that every so often we have to invest at least $120,000 to $150,000 on a bus. So that's a significant purchase.
Absolutely, you're right. Yep.
Those are good points. Thank you, Michael. Did you have any other questions? Oh, hands down. Cathy Edgerly.
I just wanted to revisit a moment of the insurance on the building, because even if the town were to agree to buy the building, it seems to me that it could take more than till June for all of the due diligence and the deed and the escrow and this and that. And so it would seem like insurance should be extended perhaps. Plus there's no guarantee that the town will buy the building, but be that as it may, even if the school board were then, if the town did its due diligence and they decided we just can't afford this, and then the school board decided to sell the building, on the open market, it just seems to me that the insurance should be extended out past what is listed here. And if you don't need it, fantastic. But seems like better to account for it than the opposite.
Good point, Cathy. Thank you. So
if the school board decides, and we're not looking to approve anything right now because there's still a lot of numbers I'm waiting for from the state with terms with long-term weighted ADM and the yield expected. I'm not looking until I don't even think at your December meeting, we're probably going to be looking at approving something in January. So there's time to do a feasibility study, or at least I would think to get started. at that time in December or in January, we can make some adjustments and hold a special meeting if you feel like you want to extend and add the building back in or pieces of it. If it's gonna be empty, but in the process of being sold, then I would call the insurance company and ask about an empty building and insurance on that. I'm sure that, if someone were to still get hurt, it would cover that, but I would work through on whether there'd be a savings or not for insurance on a building that was in the process of being sold. So I feel like you have some decisions and information that's gotta be sort of vetted out before we should move with adding it in, unless you wanna do something different.
Okay. That sounds reasonable. That little bugger is flying, this teeny little fly is flying around, driving us bonkers here, so. Excuse me. So, okay, that is something we will definitely have to be taking a look at.
Want me to stop screen sharing now?
Is there any other questions for Heidi? Okay,
Thank you so much.
thank
You're
you.
welcome, thank you.
All right, and then the transportation stipends and timing for payment. So we had a discussion about with the stipend, I think Lori had mentioned it might make more sense to have those payments go out at the end of the year. That way, it's been clear the student has been utilizing that stipend for the amount of time. I've had conversations with folks, and just to be clear, I do not support this model, but I have heard people talking about, the transportation stipend across the board and doing away with the bus and doing away with the transportation. I think that families right now have been through enough. I know from other meetings, Daniel feels the same way and is very strong that we need to retain this and that this is going to be an important piece for families for now to continue with. But if something was to change and it was to somehow go to this no transportation and we did like a transportation stipend thing for everybody, at that time I would see and probably make an argument, one that we even had it, and two, that it would be paid in the beginning of the year. Because I think the end of the year is tough. People could probably use that money and put in their gas tanks and fuel tanks. So, but it does make sense, understanding what Lori had explained, to kind of put that towards the end of the year. So, I think we can continue with that conversation. She's not here, and we have the holiday coming up, and I think probably by our next meeting we'll have some more dots dotted. But that is what I would say, and we'll see. I think Daniel will be at the next meeting. Give you some time to think about what your thoughts are on that, and really make a decision so families can understand and know when to expect that income to help them out. So I don't know if there's any ideas on that, or how you think about that, or
The Vermont Constitution says a competent number of schools ought to be maintained in each town for the convenient instruction of youth. If it's not convenient for parents to send their kids to school, they're not going to send their kids to school. So I think it's super important that we adhere to the Vermont Constitution, which I just swore an oath to uphold, which says education needs to be convenient. Okay, we're not gonna supply a school anymore. We need to supply an easy way for kids to get to school, because otherwise, kids from poor families are not going to be able to keep up.
yeah, it's quite a burden, and fuel and gas costs are not going down. So, so at least I know with confidence I can say that maintaining and keeping our transportation the way that it is something we feel is very important. And as this kind of develops and we figure out more down the road, we can address it at that time. But we'll talk more about the December meeting for that. So, and I think that about does it. So, do you want to do the honors?
Move to adjourn.
All right, I second. Any discussion?
Thank you guys.
All right. Thank you guys. Hearing none, it is 5:10 or 17:10 p.m. and the Board of Directors meeting for the Windham School District is adjourned. Thank you all so much, and look forward to next meeting will be Thursday, December 12th,
Post the
2024.
agenda right away.
Yep, and we're gonna post the agenda right away.
And you know what, there's something wrong with